Salam everybody and welcome back. Xiaomi finally unveiled the global edition of the Xiaomi 12, the 12 Pro, and the 12X. Now, the 12 and the 12 Pro are both powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, and the 12X is actually powered by the Snapdragon 870. Slightly slower processor, but definitely still a flagship experience in a smaller form factor. So, without further ado, let me share with you guys my favorite features of the brand new Xiaomi series. I have the 12X and the 12 Pro, and that should give us both sides of the spectrum of what Xiaomi is offering for us in early 2022. This is TK, let's check them out. Like and subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. So here we have them, the 12 Pro on the right, the 12X on the left. The 12X and the 12 are very much the same size. It's a 6.23-inch display or 6.28-inch display at 120 Hz. So you're not going to get a very different experience here with the 12 and 12X. The 12 Pro obviously is the bigger of the three. It's going to be a 6.73-inch display, and that one's also going to be running at a QHD resolution as opposed to Full HD is what we see here on both the 12X and the 12. The other thing that I also want to mention to you guys is one of the other differences, of course, is the fact that the charging technologies that we're looking here is slightly also different. The 12 Pro is going to be featuring the 120-watt charging tech, and of course with the supported brick in the box. That's going to help us charge this device in literally under 20 minutes from 0 to 100%. We have a 4600 milliampere battery here as opposed to a 4500 milliampere. Now, the 12 and the 12X are both going to be supporting the 67-watt charger, which is included in the box. So as far as charging, fastest charging technology on both obviously going to be on the 12 Pro. And that's going to be one of my first things that I want to talk to you guys about that I like here, is obviously the specifications and what are going to be the best features between the 12, the 12X, and the 12 Pro. So as you see in front of us here, we have a 6.78-inch display. Let's go ahead and kind of cover real quick specifications. WQHD, so a QHD resolution at 120 Hz display with up to 1500 nits as for brightness. As far as what we get on the 12 and the 12X, it's going to be basically a 6.28-inch display, 1080p resolution at 120 Hz with up to 1100 peak brightness outside. So which means you'll get better visibility here on the right with the 12 Pro. Both of them are running MIUI 13, although one of them is running on, obviously the 12X is running on Android 11 as opposed to the 12 and the 12 Pro running on Android 12. So what that means essentially is that certain features within Android, that meaning Android 12, are not going to be available on both devices, and that's something that we want to keep in mind. So overall, as far as the UI elements though, MIUI 12 is going to be powering both of them, and one of the really nice things about them as far as usability, I'm actually able to get 5G here in the US. I am running on Project Fi in the US, and I was actually able to get 5G connectivity, although this is not intended for the US market. Now, some of the big differences as well is when we start talking about the lenses and the cameras that we have in here. Now, both of them are featuring a 32 megapixel sensor on the front. It's a punch hole camera in the center, and that's going to be pretty much the same between the 12, 12X, and 12 Pro. Where it differs essentially is on the 12 Pro, we're running a triple 50 megapixel sensor here. The same standard wide, the ultra wide, and the telephoto, those are going to be the ones that are running here at 50 megapixels. 12 and the 12X is going to be slightly different. Both are running a primary 50 megapixel sensor that's going to be running the main show, where that's going to be the best sensor on those devices. Although when it comes down to the ultra wide, it's going to be a 13 megapixel sensor and a 5 megapixel sensor for a telephoto macro. Again, front-facing camera is going to be pretty much the same. And of course, as far as some capabilities, we definitely get the best camera sensors, the best camera stack set up here on the 12 Pro. Okay, now that we've had the specifications out, let's start talking about some of my favorite features. First and foremost, we are running MIUI 13 on top of Android 12. Now, the 12X does not have Android 12, it has Android 13, although it is running MIUI 13 as well. The 12 and the 12 Pro are running Android 12, so that's one of the biggest differences. But one of the things I really love about them is the fact that it allows me to install my custom wallpapers like the Goku ones I have in here, as well as the one that I have sitting in here. Let's go ahead and turn that off and turn it back on. You can see definitely a lot of really nice customizations that we get, and I really wished more OEMs in the market allow us to do this and customize our experience on our smartphones. Both of them feature an in-display fingerprint sensor, and of course it is also customizable. So if I press and hold a little bit longer, I'm able to jump into a QR code scanner, or I'm also able to jump in directly into the search functionality. You're also able to customize different things in there. We'll get a chance to check that out. We have the Google feed here on the left. On the right, we have more applications. Swiping from the bottom, we have access to the Google, well, the actual App Store. And of course, the search bar, which I feel like is in the right spot. So we get access to the search bar present at the bottom, and we're able to use it one-handed without having to actually reach for two hands. The other thing, of course, if we swipe down from the top, we have access to the notification panel. Swiping to the other side, we have access, well, actually the notifications on the left. This was going to be the notification panel toggles that we have on the right. And if you swipe down by any chance on the right side, you get this one. And if you swipe on the left, you have access to this. Although don't worry about it if you swipe down by mistake. Just go ahead and swipe them between the two, and you're able to open them up. We have access obviously to dark mode, do not disturb, casting, reverse wireless charging, ultra battery saving as well, and of course nearby sharing, as we have Google Play services built in here. And at the end, I like to turn on obviously dark mode on here. Now, as I mentioned to you guys before, this is running the global edition, so this is MIUI 13, version 13.0.10. That's going to be the stable global edition, running on Android 12 with a January 1st, 2022 security patch update. This one is the 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gig model. There's going to be different versions available, and of course, your mileage will be slightly different depending on the device that you're getting, on the pricing. I mean, when I talk about the mileage. Now this one does support dual SIM. As I mentioned, I'm running it on Project Fi, and I'm able to pick up 5G in the US. We have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, connectivity, and sharing, of course. Always on display, lock screen configuration. Under the display, you're able to customize your speed as far as the refresh rate and the resolution on the display when it comes to the 12 Pro. The 12X and the 12 only feature 1080p resolution, so Full HD Plus is what we get there. Here we're able to jump between the Full HD Plus and the WQHD Plus. Again, better resolution. It does actually drain a little bit more on the battery side, but of course it gives you the best experience on here. As far as the refresh rate, you have the ability of turning it on in auto, which allows it to actually fluctuate the refresh rate, or under custom, being able to lock it in between 60, 90, or 120, and I'm keeping it at 120 right now. Other than that, you can also use basically the AI image engine to turn it on, to be able to customize different things, super resolution, different options as well. And you notice it actually allows it to actually enhance some of the videos in there, as well as the pictures that you're looking at on the device. In VR, auto rotation, of course, all the other options we get in there. Display configuration, all the other ones. Sound, this one is tuned by Harman Kardon, but it also supports Dolby. So if I jump all the way down to additional settings, you'll notice there's options for sound here. Actually, if I jump a little bit higher, so if we jump in directly into the sound effects, we'll notice here Dolby Atmos, we have dynamic, and we also have the graphic equalizer customization. Headphones button remote, if you're using a headphone connected to USB-C, you'll be able to actually customize those experiences. Otherwise, as I mentioned to you guys, battery 4600 milliampere, charged with 120 or 50 watt charging. I don't have a 50 watt charger, so I wasn't able to test that, but the 120 is absolutely crazy fast. As far as additional settings, we're able to customize region, quick ball, screen recorder, one-handed operation, accessibility. Memory extension allows us to use a page file system by adding 3 gigabytes from the internal storage to the RAM. So even though I have 12 gigs, I can technically run it at basically showing an additional 3, which gives me the ability of having up to total of usable memory up to 15. The last thing I want to share with you guys here real quick before we get out of the additional settings is the ignore accidental touch. Now, by default under recommended, it is turned on, but if you notice that you're still actually registering some accidental touches, you're able to jump into the big area, which enables it actually to turn on a slightly bigger area for customization. So this should work a little bit better for you guys also. Small area, of course, as well as custom, gives you the ability of customizing the area by either small or big. I like to keep it as default, and it's been working pretty well for me overall. So this is pretty much the additional settings and what we get in there. As far as the actual customizations, the rest of them, you're able to log into your Me account, your Google account, as well as the ability of customizing all the other options in there as well. Battery, everything as far as privacy and protection, safety and emergency, and password and security. Fingerprint sensor is actually pretty good, very responsive, and it works very nicely. Now, that pretty much takes us overall where we're getting into the actual display. One of the things I really liked about this is the fact that we do get the QHD or WQHD resolution, as well as the 120 Hertz refresh rate, and we're able to customize it anywhere between 1080p to QHD, as well as the ability of jumping all the way to 120 Hertz down to basically 60 and lock it into that, or keep it in more of an automatic situation. Scrolling, obviously very, very nice, as I showed you guys before. 120 Hertz works really, really nice. And of course, if you like to customize it and maybe save a little bit of battery, you can definitely jump in and get that benefit there. Now, overall, as far as benchmark, we talked about that. Speed and connectivity, we also need to cover the fact that it does actually support 5G in the US, and we're able to clock in about 172 megabits down and about 40 up. That's going to be the fastest one. Now, I am running it on Project Fi, so your mileage may vary. Make sure you double check the band support on the Mi 12 Ultra Pro or the Mi 12 the X, or even the 12X before you buy it. So make sure that you are going to be able to use that device to its full potential. More than likely, for this in general, I find that 4G LTE does actually lock in pretty well, and we're able to get some decent speeds. But for 5G connectivity, make sure you double check the bands. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the cameras on this device. 32 front, triple 50 megapixel cameras on the back. It's the easiest way to actually describe any camera stack on a system. But one of the main benefits that we have in here is the ability of actually utilizing those main sensors on the back for more than just taking, like, the best camera on this is not going to be just the main sensor. This one actually carries 3 really good cameras, and one of the really nice benefits of it is whenever we jump into like the 50 megapixel cameras, where you've seen it on the Ultra one, this is where it's using the full potential of the sensor itself. Typically, you only have access to the main sensor sensor. In this situation, you'll notice I have access to the ultra wide, access to the main sensor, as well as the 2x telephoto. Now, one of the things that obviously I will definitely say is the color between the three is not exactly the same at full potential, but definitely between the ultra wide and the standard wide, you're definitely getting the best experience. This is if you're jumping into the 50 megapixel, although within the regular camera, you'll notice 50 ultra wide, and a telephoto are all running very similar to each other. And one of the main benefits here is they also kind of get them really nicely color calibrated together. So 4K 50, sorry, let's jump in real quick into video. The front-facing camera is going to be pretty much capped at 1080p 60. This is something that we've seen from Xiaomi for quite some time. When it comes down to the main sensors on the back, we're able to shoot 4K 60 on the main, the ultra-wide, and the telephoto all at the same time. Again, different colored the calibration running at the telephoto, but overall 4K 60 across all of them. Although when we jump into 8K, we pretty much are limited to the main sensor, and it is limited to 24 frames per second, not 30 or 60. And for that reason alone, I, for the most part, like to stick to 4K 60. I feel like this gives me the best experience overall. And I pretty much use the main sensor and the ultra-wide because those are the main usage one. The main sensor gets me as close as I can as far as being near the subject, and of course the ultra-wide jumps in there. Let me go ahead and give you guys a quick sample of the front-facing and the back-facing sensors here on the Xiaomi 12 Pro. Okay, we're going to start off with the front-facing camera on the brand new 12 Pro. Now, one thing to keep in mind, 1080p 60 is going to be the maximum resolution, and this is typical to what we've seen before from Xiaomi. There's a little bit of wind and a little bit of sound around me, so hopefully you're still able to hear me very clearly. But let's go ahead and switch over to the back-facing sensors. As you already know, those are the best sensors that we have in here. We're going to be able to shoot all the way up to 4K and even 8K, but I'm going to keep it at 4K 60 frames per second. Switching over to the main sensors on the back. Now the beauty here is that all three sensors are 50 megapixel sensors, which enables us to actually record 4K 60 frames per second from all of the lenses on the back. This is something different than some of the other devices on the market. They're really focusing on giving you the right camera for the shot, so basically the right tool for what you want to take. In this situation, we're recording 4K 60 frames per second, and I'm able to use the wide-angle lens and still enjoy the beautiful colors and all the processing power of the 12 Pro. Now, as you saw there, the cameras on this are going to work really good. The biggest difference between this and the other device here that we get in is, again, the primary sensor is very much a similar experience, 4K 60, 8K, 24 frames per second on the 12X as well as the 12. So I feel like if you're going to be recording video, that's going to be obviously the best experience. When you jump into the ultra-wide, although on the 12 Pro here, that I was able to jump into the ultra-wide and record 4K 60 frames per second, we won't be able to do that here, obviously, because of the limitation of the sensor. That's one thing to keep in mind, is you're looking at a 13 megapixel sensor as opposed to what we get here, which is a 50 megapixel sensor. So as far as the back-facing sensor, if I jump into the ultra-wide, again, as you can see here, 4K 30 is going to be the best, not 4K 60. But again, just keep in mind, there are some differences slightly between the two. Now, I want to talk to you guys about audio, and of course, one of the things that definitely a lot of people always care is how does these speakers sound? Now, the 12 Pro is featuring a quad speaker setup, and again, tuned by Harman Kardon, running Dolby Atmos. And here on the left, we have a dual stereo speaker setup, which is similar to the 12 that we have in here. We're going to play the same song that we always play on our channel, Jumbo by Alex Scrindo. It's going to be an NCS release, and I have the volume of both, as I showed you guys, at 100%. So first we're going to start off with the 12 Pro, and then we'll jump over to the 12X.
Jack it up.
Definitely sounds pretty good. No distortion at the higher end. Again, we are running at 100% here on the volume. Now on the 12X, I'm running the exact same song at roughly about the same point, about 53 seconds into the song, running at 100% volume as well.
Jack it up.
Now, the audio on this one, although it sounded a little bit louder, it definitely had a little bit more of a bass representation. Both of them sounded pretty good and should be able to serve you very nicely for phone calls and, of course, for watching content, movies, or anything like that on this. So it should not be any problem for you guys. Okay, now that we've covered the cameras, we've covered the UI, we've covered the specifications, let's talk about gaming, because again, we're running a very large display, large battery, fast charging, a lot of components that should be able to provide us the best gaming experience on the market. Again, latest SoC, fastest technology from Xiaomi, and of course, a very large and very nice display. The games that I have installed on this device right now, I have Asphalt 9, I have PUBG New State, as well as Call of Duty Mobile. I did install Undead Horde, as well as Isolation, or Alien Isolation. And last but not least, I actually, a late kind of comer to the game as well, is Genshin Impact. So I'll go ahead and make sure to put that in there. We do have the Game Turbo, which is their default game launcher that we have in here. And if a game is not showing, what it is automatically added, you're able to also add the plus sign and make sure that you add that in here. Now, one thing I will say as far as the gaming experience overall, it's what do you expect from Xiaomi? Everything is running at full potential. You're able to customize your experience. You're also able to customize basically an experience per game, and of course go in there to each game by itself. An example with Call of Duty, you can customize the enhanced visuals as well as touch responsiveness, resistance on there. It is 120 Hertz with 480 Hertz touch responsiveness on this. So I'm going to give you guys a quick sample of some of the games that are that I played on here. Of course, we're going to play some PUBG, some Call of Duty, and some Genshin Impact.
Backup! Contact with enemy! Enemy down! Reloading! Cover me! Watch out! Grenade! Target's in sight! Enemy contact! Need backup! Contact with enemy! Headshot!
Missile awaiting orders.
Enemy down!
Windblade!
Cool it! Freeze!
So as you saw there, gaming on this is absolutely not going to give you any problems. Now, I do want to talk about the fact that definitely the 888 or the 8 Gen 1 are both warm, or the SoCs that can definitely get a little bit warm. And what I mean by this is, as I was running this game, I was actually able to hit about 108 to almost 110 on the back side as well as the front side. And what that means, or translating into Celsius, is about 44, 46, about 44 or so degrees Celsius, which is technically very warm. Now, does that mean that the device is going to shut down? For me, it did not give me a temperature warning. I've seen other videos where they've tested different things, and of course they've pushed the device to a certain limit, and of course they were getting the overheating. In good experience, like in well-controlled, not necessarily outside sitting in the sun, the device shouldn't have any problems and it should not freeze on you. Where it does actually become a little bit concerning here is the fact that it definitely still has the issue that we saw with the 888, and that's the heating. Again, this has nothing to do with the Xiaomi device. This is just how the 888 is and the 8 Gen 1 are. They're warm processors. They're definitely pulling a lot of power to provide us that performance that we want. Now, in those experiences, I felt like the best thing that we could do when I was playing PUBG, when I was playing Call of Duty, even though the device got a little bit warm, I didn't have any issues with the performance. I didn't see any performance dip, meaning my frame rate didn't stop, my device didn't lock up, and I didn't get an overheating. Genshin, on the other hand, does have the ability of pushing a device to a temperature or to a thermal concern. For me, the temperature I was showing you guys before, that was in Genshin, running at the best performance with 60 frames per second. And at the end of the day, what I realized is this. Genshin as a game is definitely it does a great job in pushing devices to their limits. If you want to play that game and you want to get the best experience on the 12 Pro, either recommendation is two things. Either turn on balance mode in the game turbo system as opposed to performance, meaning it doesn't push the 8 Gen 1 all the way to its full potential, and you're still going to get a great experience. This is something that a lot of people don't really talk about. The 8 Gen 1 and the 888 are way overpowered to what we need on a daily basis, which means if you get a device that gives you the ability of basically maybe regulating it a little bit, some people may call that thermal throttling, it actually gives you the ability of getting a slightly better experience. Now, I'm not saying thermal throttling, but just throttling in general. And I feel like if you're running in balance mode, you'll get better temperatures, meaning it'll be a little bit lower, but you're still going to get the same good experience. Touch sensitivity on the side or ghosting and stuff like that, I wasn't having any of those issues, but I did have that feature turned on. And of course, if you do have concerns, you can also customize that to have a bigger area of cancellation on the side, so you don't have any accidental touching. Camera performance on this is going to be a little bit of an interesting mix. When we're talking about the 12 and the 12X, they're both featuring this exact same sensors as far as 50 megapixel, a 13, and an 8. Now, those are going to be the main sensors on the back, and on the front, it's a 32 megapixel, similar to the one we have on the Pro. Front-facing camera experience with good lighting and without having a sharp exposure shift, meaning if it's trying to run an HDR image between you and a background that's overly exposed, it's always going to overexpose the background to give you a good exposed subject. So I feel like that's always going to be the experience there. Although if you flip it to the back-facing sensor, you get much better performance. So my recommendation, live in those sensors on the back. The 5050 on the Pro are always going to be performing the best. I love the fact that on the Pro, we're able to use all three sensors to the full 50 megapixel sensor. We have a mode for that. As far as the X and the 12X and the 12 standard model, you don't have the ability of using all of them, but you have one on the main 50. That's still going to be functional. 4K 60, 8K 24, capable on both devices or all three devices. Although 4K 60 is capable on all three sensors on the back for the Xiaomi 12 Pro. So you're getting a little bit, as you see here, kind of like the trend. You get better functionalities and options when you go up in the chain with those devices. And as you saw there with the images, they look pretty good. I will say though that they typically tend to be slightly more saturated, so the colors are a little bit more poppy, social media ready, the best way I can explain it. And it did have a little bit of a problem when I was trying to take a picture of a red tulip that was there was sun background hitting it, and it was having a hard time getting some of the details there as I'm showing you guys with those images. But otherwise, cameras worked really nice, a lot of functionalities, a lot of options, the ability of taking pictures of the moon. So again, a nice little, I call that a novelty mode because I don't feel like it's something that we're going to be using all the time, but when you need it, it's there. So with that being said, what do I think about the brand new lineup from Xiaomi? For the beginning of 2022, I think they're definitely providing us a very good experience. Are these going to be the devices that everybody should be just jumping on them? I would probably say if you're running a Xiaomi 9 or 9, maybe a 10, you may actually get some benefit from jumping over to this device. If you're coming in from an 11 series, I don't really feel like this is going to be definitely a big upgrade. The 888 to the 8 Gen 1, not that big of a performance boost, and I feel like the experience is going to be very similar. So I would definitely recommend something with the 10 generation or earlier Xiaomi devices, or if you're coming in obviously from other companies, that definitely going to be with the best experience you're going to get is on the Pro. The cameras on the back work really nice. The experience hopefully will get better. This is again global edition. 5G in the US as well, hopefully 5G in your area. Make sure to double check those bands. So with that being said, thank you very much for checking out this video. My hope is that you found something helpful here. And let me know in the comments, what do you think of these devices? The 12, the 12X, and the 12 Pro are interesting approaches from Xiaomi because the 12X and the 12 are very similar, although you get some really nice premium experience, latest SoC with the 12, although the 12X is no slouch. Keep in mind, the 870 is definitely a very strong processor, even for 2022. We are way overpowered in what we need on our devices. This is TK. Thank you very much for the support. I'll see you in the next one.